Ladies and gentlemen, on this special evening, we also take this opportunity to salute a disciplined and skilled person, an inspiration, Sri Rabindranath Thakur. His diligence towards environmental stewardship made him a legend in the eyes of many. He would share his love for unwinding in the natural habitat with his friends and family. On this special evening, it would only be right to honor Sri Rabindranath Thakur and his principles which inspired the people and also laid the stone for the foundation of the Balipara Foundation at his residence in Guwahati in the year 2007. Tonight, we honor him with this special video tribute to his life and to his love for the natural world, passed down to his children and institutionalized now in the Balipara Foundation and its work in the Eastern Himalayas.
Hi everyone, my name is Sangeeta Goswami, daughter of Rabindranath Thakur. It is an honor and a privilege for me to call myself his daughter. Amongst my father's many great qualities, from being hardworking, honest, disciplined, organized, the one that stands out the most is probably his love for the great outdoors and nature. My brother could not have picked a better way or a more befitting way to honor his memory by creating the Balipara Foundation. On this, the 9th year of its celebration, I would like to share a glimpse of how my father infused this love of nature and the great outdoors in all of us. Ever since I can remember, I have known my father to love this beautiful world. I'm not sure whether spending time in the lush green tea gardens that turned his heart green or he was born with it. He always looked for ways to maximize his time and efforts outdoors. I remember when I was a young girl coming home from boarding school for winter vacations, I would come home and ask him for things to do, and every weekend, every Sunday, my question would be, what are we going to do today? And almost every single time his suggestion was, let's go on a picnic. And did we go on picnics? I was more interested in the food, and I still remember the yellow plastic Tupperware box that carried sandwiches and other delicious food. He, on the other hand, was more interested in the outdoors. He talked endlessly about the birds, the trees, the plants, his whole environment. My husband once noticed that he always used his senses when out in nature, when in the outdoors. I still remember he would stand, sniff the air, he would feel the rustle of the breeze on his face, he would listen to the rustling of the leaves, the chirping of the birds, and he would, even if we went to a riverbank for a picnic, he would pick the sand up with his fingers and feel it through his fingers and touch the soil. I remember we would go on bike rides and hikes in the tea plantations. I learned to ride the bike on his very bicycle, and so did my brother, that he purchased when he first joined the tea plantations way back in 1950. We still have that bicycle today, which is still in working condition. I remember meandering through the narrow paths between the tea bushes, riding endlessly, not knowing where we would end up, waiting to discover what we would find. As I sit here in this beautiful garden here in our Narikalbari home, I see and feel him in every corner of this garden. It was his vision, it was his dream. From the very first hole that he dug, the very first tree that he planted in this very garden, it has morphed into this beautiful paradise. He so lovingly cared for it, planned it, and planted everything with a thought. My brother and my mother have continued to maintain it, add to it, change things, but his original plan still remains. And when I sit out and I look at this little paradise here, I can't help but think of him every single minute. The attraction is so great in this little paradise here that animals from outside come by. Once we had a deer that got trapped in here. Obviously, the lush green foliage around attracted it. And another time, a small spotted jungle cat came into our home, into this garden, and tried to make it his home. Unfortunately, we had to send it back to the zoo. If any stranger or any visitor walks by, comes down by lane number 1 in Narikal Bari, and they see this, they are wowed by the lushness, the tranquility, and the peacefulness of this beautiful paradise. When my parents visited friends in the tea plantations, their car always returned overflowing with cuttings and plants of various kinds to add to this garden. I used to think the hibiscus flower came only in one color, but do you know this garden has 12 different varieties? I'm not sure all of them are still there, but we still have several. There's crimson ones, purple ones, green ones, double-petaled ones, just to name a few. I also learned the names of so many plants and flowers from them. Lantana, bleeding heart, ixora, and just so many others that are still growing profusely all around this garden. My parents visited us a few times in the United States, and when they visited us and came to us, my dad did not stop to share his expertise and give us advice on how to enhance and beautify our garden. I just loved it. My husband, who's an avid gardener himself, would always seek his advice and would constantly tap into him as to how to improve his own gardening skills and improve his garden. My dad, when he came to visit us, was not one for visiting the glitzy malls, restaurants, hotels. All he wanted to do was to visit the national parks, and we did do a lot of that. We traveled up and down the Pacific Northwest, and he sure enjoyed every one of those trips. When we'd travel by car from one place to another, he would always want to spend extra time, so we would factor that extra time in for him to examine, explore, and read all that he needed to about garden. One time we had stopped by the Redwood Forest in California. We had factored a few hours in for this stop, but it ended up being an overnight stay because he just enjoyed every bit of it and could not get enough. My dad's discipline and civic sense is unparalleled to any I know. He always lamented and felt really sad when he would see buildings and concrete structures go up without any planning. He felt anything could be beautified with flowers, plants, and anything green, and somehow I feel that too. I am forever thankful and grateful to my dad for instilling this love of nature, of this beautiful, beautiful world. I hope he knows and can see from wherever he is how much we cherish and enjoy this paradise that he created for us. We love you and we miss you. Thank you.
And to continue to celebrate his legacy with the 9th Rabindranath Tagore Memorial Lecture, established in 2013, the lecture honors his memory with creative, original speakers and thinkers from around the world, from backgrounds in business to historians to eminent environmentalists. This year's guest needs no introduction. Srimati Mahua Maitra, an Honourable Member of Parliament. Though currently serving in West Bengal, Mahua Maitra was born in Assam, in Labak, in Kachar district, and with these deep roots in the northeast, is intimately acquainted with the unique landscape and rich diversity of the people of the eastern Himalayas. Ladies and gentlemen, Srimati Mahua Maitra could not be with us here in person, but despite her physical absence, she joins us digitally to address our August gathering, who is present with us in person and are watching her virtually.
It's a privilege to be addressing the Rabindranath Tagore Memorial Lecture. Unfortunately, because of a sudden change in schedule and due to Parliament being on now, I couldn't be present in person today at the Balipara Foundation Awards 2021. It is an honor to be part of this global audience dedicated to celebrating the indigenous people of the Eastern Himalayas in their ceaseless efforts towards conservation of our natural world. We're really living in unprecedented times. As the world continues to grapple with the ferocity of the COVID-19 pandemic, doesn't seem to be backing down. There's now this threat of Omicron. It is clearer than ever that the time to re-evaluate our systems is now. Global economic policy has always had a one sided relationship with the environment and with biodiversity. And the fact that nature's resources have been free has made it a very soft target for rampant overuse, exploitation, and mismanagement. And we're often keeping nature's capital out of the traditional economic models of valuation. But we must remember that they're also finite. We are using it for short term financial gain, and this has overwhelmingly led to a worldwide reduction in forest cover, degradation of land, hazardous levels of pollution, and overexploitation of ecosystems. This is ultimately the phenomenal economic and social cost to ourselves, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not. Climate change is not a distant threat. This is a pressing reality that we must understand and act towards. Today, it is almost apt that we had a parliamentary discussion on climate change, and almost all parliamentarians stood up and said that the time you cannot be a denier. You can be for or against, but you cannot be a denier any longer. So the people who think that life will just go on for our children as life has gone on for us are in for a very rude shock. Therefore, it is imperative that the value of nature be visible and prioritized at the core of an economy. We must understand the need for protection and the need for conservation of biodiversity. And we've got to act to mitigate it now in order to power the global economy and this ecosystem that is sustaining us all. So businesses and governments have to wake up and realize this. The wheels are in motion, but is it enough? We've had Copenhagen, now we've got Glasgow. 10 years we get together and globally do something about it. And it's really worrying where we find ourselves in pretty much the same position that we've been in the last decade. The economy of the Eastern Himalayas relies incomparably beautiful landscapes, green forests, people whose lives are intertwined with nature. Your harmony, flora, fauna, rare ecological wonders. But today, what we are witnessing is a structural agricultural collapse. More and more land is being converted to monoculture, and shrinking forests have cascading effects on the regional landscape and on global economies. On an average, approximately 23% of the land in the Eastern Himalayan region has been converted into desert already. The full implication of our actions is apparent. This green shift in focus is now extremely crucial in this decade and in the next. As we found ourselves with unprecedented challenges, humanity must look at this as an opportunity also. We've got to transform this crisis into prosperity. But driving such systems to change needs systematic actions, not just from leaders, but also from governments, from politicians, from policymakers, and all of us who are key stakeholders in bringing about this transition. New approaches would need to look at evaluating the extent of the ecological destruction, rampant biodiversity, and habitat loss, extreme carbon emission conditions, and the impact that the fragile health of an ecology can have on its people. So if the ecology is suffering, if biodiversity is suffering, there's no way we as mankind can prosper. It's not possible. Positive changes such as the restoration, the preservation, as well as turning back to eco-cultural aspirations that indigenous communities have, and the connection of nature with the cultural landscape of people requires the urgent commitment of policies and of businesses. And we've got to drive towards ecosystems that we can sustain. We can't be living in an ecosystem that we are destroying day by day. Historically, economic growth has been prioritized over factors such as education, health, equality, while the planet's biodiversity is continuing to diminish worldwide. There's a need to rethink the status quo as we know it. And there's a need to work towards solving the threefold challenges of social equity, economic well-being, and environmental crisis. This has an impact on the well-being and security of the population. The intrinsic value of any economy rides on the sustenance capacity of its natural resources and the regulations it abides by. So, if we don't have regulations to preserve natural resources, there's no way that we can have it ad infinitum, and then we will land ourselves in situations as we are finding today. If we look at the indigenous communities of the Eastern Himalayas, each of us has own traditional practices and own traditional knowledge, which have been powering interdependence between people and their natural assets. Now, these diverse perspectives on human growth and the well-being of the region needs to be captured in the metrics of human development, needs to be captured for interdependent growth. You can't just have income growth. You've got to have interdependent growth, holistic growth. I firmly believe that the common citizens of India, the grassroots indigenous communities, will play a crucial role in combating climate change. And tonight, through the Balipara Foundation Awards, Vision of Rural Futures, we celebrate these indigenous communities whose voices inspire us every day. These are change makers who make this world a better place for all of us to live in. The way forward, everyone asks, what is the way forward? The way forward is fraught with challenges and obstacles, and we are swiftly degenerating our only remaining true wealth and beauty, which is our natural world. The balance scale has been tipped towards the wrong side, and there is a need for all of us to understand that these problems are very complex. We're not going to be able to find overnight solutions. The economy is the economy is easy to destroy, but perhaps easy also somewhat to put back on track. Now, nature, once you destroy, is almost impossible to put back on track. It's far harder. So when we look at the complexity of these problems and the solutions that are required to achieve and to reverse and pave a new path for a new future. So the way forward is to understand and appreciate the role of ecology in economy. So the eco is common in both ecology and economy, and you can't have one without the other. We can't shy away from acknowledging how important our natural resources are in the grand scheme of things. And it's up to us to learn our lessons, to adapt, and we've got to learn to have a future that is both transformative, yes, but also sustainable. In order to build climate resilience in our country and to achieve net zero target, the existing policies and frameworks need to change. They need to get updated, but more important, they need to get adhered to. We have lots of regulations on paper, but if nobody's following them, we're not getting anywhere. What is important now is the need for an integrated policy approach, where people, the economy, and the ecology that sustains and underpins all of this can be managed effectively towards a sustainable future. There is a need for building climate resilience through frameworks that support environmental policies and integrate the livelihoods of communities that live in this country. Land use policies have to be effectively integrated into existing business structures and existing business policies. The management of existing forests of the region must be done in partnership with indigenous communities because they are the key stakeholders. We are driving rural employment, but we've got to have restorative approaches to creating rural employment. Anything that creates rural employment but destroys ultimately the ecosystem that surrounds them cannot be sustainable. And this can be ensured through intensifying policies and frameworks that measure and mitigate the environmental risks of the Eastern Himalayan region, which is extremely unique. We've got to understand these risks, acknowledge, share, and then cooperate among nations that understand these economies and the sustainability of these economies. So congratulations to the recipient of the Balipara Foundation Awards 2021. Each of these individuals inspire us every single day. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me here to speak today. And I hope that I can be associated with the pioneering work that you are doing, and together we can definitely make sure that the Eastern Himalayas is something that we bequeath to our children, and that the memory of the Eastern Himalayas is not the only thing that we bequeath to them. The reality of this beautiful region is something that we must hand over to them. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Srimati Mahua Matra, for that very powerful and inspirational speech, and thank you for being with us at the 9th Balipara Foundation Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, this year Balipara Foundation, with a vision towards rewilding our collective future across Indian Eastern Himalayas, is hereby delighted to announce Rewilding the Eastern Himalayas Grant, a social grant of 5 lakh INR this year to honor and support an individual or community organization working towards implementing a conservation model that is helping to rebuild healthy ecosystems, restoring habit for plants and wildlife, and enhancing community engagement in the process. The grant will facilitate field activities and provide an opportunity to leverage this support to make their work more sustainable. And so, ladies and gentlemen, to honor this first grant recipient, may I call upon Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary, wildlife researcher, naturalist, known for his expertise on the fauna of Northeast India. Mr. Chaudhary is an ornithologist, mammologist, artist, author, and has contributed enormously to the conservation and awareness in Northeast India. Here he is. A big round of applause for Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary. A hearty welcome to you, sir. We present to you a token of our love and appreciation. And the Rural Futures Rewilding Grant goes to Mr. Manjit Patir. Please help me in welcoming him onto the stage, please. Mr. Manjit Patir's idea of offering trees as the abode of the departed souls has encouraged people to join him. With the encouraging response of many people and with the hope of making the process more elaborate and formalized, the group Prakritik Bhikshu Dal was formed. In 2016, the organization was renamed as Hevji Prithvi Surakha Abhiyan, or Save Green World Mission. The organization believes that the amount of damage to the climate that can be caused by lack of large tree cover is beyond belief, and that a newly planted sapling can never mitigate the harm created by cutting off a big tree. The Save Green World Mission first priority is to save the massive trees already there towards the hope for a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mr. Manjit Patir, and I will request Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary to present the grant to Mr. Manjit Patir. Heartily congratulate Mr. Manjit Patir. And thank you, Dr. Anwaruddin Chaudhary. Thank you, sir. I will request Mr. Manjit Patir to speak a few words. Do akhar kole bhalbo.
Sardar, আমার আজিৰ সভাত উপস্থিত বালিপাৰা ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনৰ সমূহ বিষয়ববীয়াসকল আৰু বিভিন্ন দল সংগঠন প্ৰকৃতি সুৰক্ষা NGO ইত্যাদি দল সংগঠনৰ বয়োজ্যেষ্ঠ জ্ঞানজ্যেষ্ঠ সকলো চৰ্দাৰ ব্যক্তিলৈ মই প্ৰণাম জনাই মই মোৰ জীৱনকালত যিখিনি অভিজ্ঞতাৰে যিখিনি গাঁও লেভেলসমূহত যিখিনি জ্ঞান পাইছোঁ সেই জ্ঞানখিনিৰে দুআষাৰমান ক'ব বিচাৰিছোঁ পৰিৱেশ সুৰক্ষাৰ বিষয়লৈ বিশেষকৈ বহুত গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ বিষয় আজিৰ এই বালিপাৰা ফাউণ্ডেশ্যনৰ এৱাৰ্ড প্ৰদান অভিযানটো সঁচাকৈ বহুত আদৰ্শনীয় বিভিন্ন চুকে অঞ্চলবিলাকৰ চুকে কোণে থকা ব্যক্তিসকলক এনেকৈ উৎসাহিত কৰিলে বহুত ভাল বুলি মই ভাবোঁ মোৰ বিশেষ ক'ব লগা কাৰণটো হৈছে আপোনালোকে জানে আজি পৃথিৱীখন যিটো প্ৰাকৃতিক ভাৰসাম্য হেৰুৱাৰ কাৰণে যি সমস্যাত আমি ভুগিব লগা হৈছোঁ অতিকৈ দুখ লগা তাৰ কাৰণে আমাৰ বহু সচেতন ব্যক্তিয়ে আজি বিভিন্ন ধৰণে গছ ৰুই পৰিৱেশ সুৰক্ষাৰ কাৰণে বহুত অভিযান চলাইছে যদিও আমি সহজে উপকৃত হ'ব নোৱাৰিম গতিকে তাৰ কাৰণে অতি অহজে পৰিৱেশ সুৰক্ষাৰ বিশেষকৈ গোলকীয় উষ্ণতাটো প্ৰতিৰোধ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে মই 2005 চনত এটা সিস্টেম জন্ম দিছিলোঁ সেইটো হৈছে প্ৰকৃতিলৈ গছ দান সদাকৈ ৰাইজ আপোনালোকে নিশ্চয় ভাবিছে চাগে প্ৰকৃতিলৈ গছ দানটো কি বস্তু প্ৰকৃতিলৈ গছ দান প্ৰকৃতিয়ে গছজোপা সৃষ্টি কৰিছে কিন্তু তাক পুনৰ দান দিব লগা হৈছে আজি জানে মানুহ পৃথিৱীখনক কি কৰিছে মানুহক প্ৰকৃতিয়ে সৃষ্টি কৰিছে কিন্তু প্ৰকৃতিয়ে সৃষ্টি কৰিলে কি হ'ব আজি ইমান ডাঙৰ পৃথিৱীখনক মানুহে গিলি পেলাই দিছে য'ত বতাহৰ পৰা আদি কৰি পানীৰ পৰা আদি কৰি কোনো এটা বস্তু মানুহৰ কবলৰ পৰা পৃথিৱীখনত হাৰি যাব পৰা নাই। তাৰ কাৰণে আমি এতিয়া কি কৰোঁ, আজি বিভিন্ন দল সংগঠনৰ পৰা আদি কৰি বিভিন্ন পৰিৱেশ কৰ্মীয়ে বহু হাজাৰ হেক্টৰ ভূমিলৈকে গছ ৰুই পৰিৱেশ সুৰক্ষাৰ কাৰণে যত্ন কৰিছে। কিন্তু আপোনালোকে চাব, আজি ৰুই যোৱা পুলিজোপাতকৈ আমি ডাঙৰ গছ ৰোপা পোনপ্ৰথমে সংৰক্ষণ কৰিব লগা হৈছে। কাৰণ গোলকীয় উষ্ণতাই যি ধৰণে আজি গ্ৰাস কৰি আহিছে, হয়তো আজি ৰোৱা পুলিজোপা জীয়াই থাকিবলৈও আমাক ডাঙৰ গছজোপাৰ সহায় লাগিব। আজি গাঁও অঞ্চলবিলাকত এনেকুৱা এটা পৰিৱেশ হৈ গৈছে, আপোনালোকে চালে অতিকৈ দুখ লগা যে চৰাই চিৰিকটি ৰবৰ কাৰণে কোনো চৰাই চিৰিকটি বাঁহ সাজি থাকিবৰ কাৰণে কোনো এটা পৰিৱেশ নাই। চৰাই চিৰিকটিয়ে গুটি খাবৰ কাৰণে বিভিন্ন গছ গছনিৰ আজি গাঁও অঞ্চলবিলাকত অভাৱ হৈ গৈছে। আৰু জংঘলবিলাকত বা হাবি বনবিলাকত আপোনালোকে নিশ্চয় দেখিছে, এই হাবিবিলাকৰ মাজতো কি হৈ গৈছে, তাত অকল আমি কেইজোপামান সৰু সুৰা জোপোহাহে দেখা পাওঁ। গতিকে আমি ফৰেষ্ট ডিপাৰ্টমেণ্টৰ ওপৰতে যদি আমি ভৰসা কৰোঁ, আমি সকলো জনসাধাৰণে ইয়াক যদি নেওচি জীয়াই থাকিব খোজোঁ, তেতিয়াহ'লে নিশ্চয় আমি মানুহ হিচাপে এইখন পৃথিৱীত জীয়াই থাকিব নোৱাৰিম। এইয়ে 2005 চনত মই প্ৰাকৃতিক ভিক্ষু দল নামৰ এটা NGO জন্ম দি তাতে প্ৰকৃতিলৈ গছ দানৰ এটা সৃষ্টি কৰিছিলোঁ। সেইটো হৈছে এনেকুৱা ছিষ্টেম, আপোনাৰ মোৰ প্ৰথমা পত্নী মণিকা পাতিৰৰ মৃত্যুৰ সদগতিৰ নামত মই পোনপ্ৰথমে এজোপা গছ প্ৰকৃতিলৈ দান কৰা হৈছিলে। সেইজোপা গছতে প্ৰথম মই নেইম প্লেট এখন লিখিছিলোঁ, কাৰণ গছজোপা মোৰ 8মান শ্ৰেণীতে ৰোৱা গছ আছিলে। সেই গছজোপাৰ প্ৰতি মোৰ সাংঘাতিক মোহ আছিলে, খুব মৰম আছিলে। মই ভাবিছিলোঁ সেই গছজোপা আজীৱন মই কেনেকৈ জীয়াই ৰাখিম। তেতিয়া মই তাইৰ মৃত্যুৰ আত্মাৰ সদগতিৰ নামত সেই গছজোপা পোনপ্ৰথমে প্ৰকৃতিলৈ দান কৰিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলোঁ। যে তাত লিখা হৈছিলে, মোক নাকাটিব, মই আপোনালোকৰ কাৰণেই জীয়াই আছোঁ। সঁচাকৈ আপোনালোকে অনুভৱ কৰি চাব, পৃথিৱীত যিমানটা কোটি কোটি গছ গছনি আছে, কেতিয়াও মোক কাটিবলৈ নকয়। সদায় কয় যে মোক সুৰক্ষা কৰক, মোক বচাই ৰাখক, মোক বচাই ৰাখিলে মই জীয়াই থাকিব পাৰিম, আপোনালোকক জীয়াই ৰাখিব পাৰিম, এনেকৈ প্ৰতিজোপা গছে কৈ আছে। কিন্তু আমি মানুহ হিচাপে আজি বুজি পোৱা নাই এইবোৰ বিষয় লৈ। এইটোৰ কাৰণে তাত লিখা আছিলে, মোক নাকাটিব, মই আপোনালোকৰ কাৰণেই জীয়াই আছোঁ। দাতা শ্ৰী মঞ্জিত পাতিৰে নিজা ভাৰ্যা স্বৰ্গীয়া মণিকা কামান পাতিৰৰ বিদেহী আত্মাৰ সদগতিৰ অৰ্থে প্ৰকৃতিলৈ দান কৰা হৈছে। তাৰমানে মই এনেকৈ চুক্তি কৰি দিছোঁ, সেই গছজোপা জিন্দগীবৰ কোনো কালতে কাটিব নোৱাৰোঁ। মোৰ ৰোৱা গছ মই যদি নাকাটোঁ, পৃথিৱীত দ্বিতীয় এজনে কেতিয়াও কাটিব নোৱাৰে। তেতিয়া ওচৰ চুবুৰীয়াৰ 2-এজন মানুহে মোক প্ৰশ্ন কৰিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলে যে আপুনি এইটো কি ছিষ্টেম কৰিছে, কিয় কৰিছে? তেতিয়া মই ক'লোঁ যে গছৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা, গছটোৰ যিটো প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা, সেইটো বিজ্ঞানসন্মত দৃষ্টিভংগীৰে কিছুমান তথ্য সম্বলিত কিছুমান মই পিকচাৰ আৰম্ভ কৰিলোঁ যে পৃথিৱীখনত গছৰ অভাৱে যি ধৰণে আজি পৃথিৱীৰ নৈ খাল বিল আদি পানী যেনেকৈ শুকাই যাবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিছে, তাৰ বিভিন্ন তথ্য আপোনাৰ বিজ্ঞানৰ তথ্যসমূহ তাত লোৱা হৈছে। লৈ সেইটো বিশ্লেষণ কৰিছোঁ আৰু সংৰক্ষণৰ যিটো ব্যৱস্থা আধ্যাত্মিকভাৱে তাত পঠাবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলোঁ। যে মই ক'লোঁ যে আপোনাৰো যদি তেনেকুৱা আত্মীয় স্বজন বা আপোনাৰ দেউতা বা মা তেনেকুৱা কোনোবা আত্মীয় স্বজনৰ নামত যদি আপুনি গছ এজোপা যদি দান দিব পাৰে, তেতিয়া নিশ্চয় বহুত ভাল হ'ব। তাৰপিছত তাৰ বিষয়ে আত্মীয় স্বজন মানে মোৰ পৰিয়ালটোৰ, মোৰ দেউতাৰ নামত, দেউতাৰ সদগতিৰ নামত এজোপা গছ যদি উৎসৰ্গিত কৰে, তেতিয়াহ'লে গছজোপা কি বুলি মানুহবিলাকে ভাবিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰে। পৰিয়ালৰ মানুহে নিজৰ সেইজোপা মোৰ দেউতা আছে বুলি ভাবিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। তেনেকৈ এতিয়া বিভিন্ন গাঁও অঞ্চলবিলাকত, স্কুল কলেজ গাঁওবিলাকত মই ডেমো দিয়াৰ ব্যৱস্থা কৰি গছ সংগ্ৰহ কৰি বৰ্তমান যথেষ্ট গছ সংৰক্ষণ কৰিবলৈ সক্ষম হৈছোঁ। সদাকৈ ৰাইজ, আপোনালোকে এই বিষয়টোত যদি অলপমান সহযোগ কৰে, তেতিয়াহ'লে মই নিশ্চয় আশা কৰিছোঁ এই প্ৰকৃতিলৈ গছ দানৰ যিটো ব্যৱস্থা, সেই ব্যৱস্থাৰে বহুত আমি পৰিৱেশ সুৰক্ষাৰ বহুত ডাঙৰ কাম কৰিব পাৰিম বুলি আশা ৰাখিছোঁ। কাৰণ আপোনালোকে চাওক, আজি যি ধৰণে জনসংখ্যা বৃদ্ধি হৈছে, সেই জনসংখ্যাৰ প্ৰতি যদি চিন্তা কৰা যায়, জনসংখ্যা বৃদ্ধিৰ প্ৰতি যদি চিন্তা কৰা যায়, হয়তো আপোনাৰ আজি বহু কষ্টৰে সৃষ্টি কৰা বনাঞ্চল আজি জীয়াই থাকিব, ভৱিষ্যতে জীয়াই থাকিব বুলি আশা কৰিব নোৱাৰি। কাৰণ এনেকুৱা উদাহৰণ আমি বহুত পাইছোঁ। প্ৰশাসনে বিভিন্ন ধৰণে বহুত উচ্ছেদ কৰিছে, কিন্তু নিজৰ বাসস্থানৰ পৰিৱেশ বিচাৰি আজি মানুহে কি কৰিছে, প্ৰশাসনৰ লগত যুদ্ধংদেহী অৱস্থাৰে আজি গোটেই ফৰেষ্ট ব্যৱস্থাটো শেষ কৰিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিছে। গতিকে আমি প্ৰশাসনৰ জৰিয়তে এইবুলি মই সেইটো ক'বলৈ যোৱা নাই যে আমি ফৰেষ্টসমূহ ধ্বংস কৰিব লাগে, সেইটো ক'বলৈ যোৱা নাই। কিন্তু এটা কথা যে ভৱিষ্যত প্ৰজন্মৰ সুৰক্ষাৰ স্বাৰ্থত আমি য'ত মানুহ থাকিব এই অঞ্চলবিলাকতো আমি প্ৰকাণ্ড প্ৰকাণ্ড গছ সুৰক্ষাৰ ব্যৱস্থা এই ধৰণে কৰিব পাৰিম। সেইটো আমি সকলো ৰাইজে যদি সহযোগ কৰে নিশ্চয় মানুহ য'ত থাকিব তাতে আমি গছ সুৰক্ষা কৰিব পাৰিম। সঁচাকৈ ৰাইজ, সঁচাকৈ আজি এইখন ঘৰৰ ভিতৰত আমি আছোঁ, কিন্তু এটা কথা যে আমি ইয়াত যি ধৰণে পৰিৱেশটো লৈ আছোঁ বাহিৰত থাকিব নোৱাৰিম। গতিকে গোটেই পৃথিৱীখনত যদি এনেকুৱা এটা মানুহ থকা অঞ্চলবিলাকত যদি আমি গছ ডাঙৰ ডাঙৰ গছো যদি সুৰক্ষা দিয়াৰ ব্যৱস্থা কৰোঁ তেতিয়াহ'লে নিশ্চয় পৰিৱেশটো বহুত ভাল হ'ব বুলি মোৰ ফালৰ পৰা আশা ৰাখি সকলো ৰাইজক সহযোগ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে অনুৰোধ জনাই মই ইমানতে সামৰণি মাৰিছোঁ।
Thank you very much. Sri Manjit Patil, thank you. আপোনাক বহুত বহুত ধন্যবাদ দিছোঁ ইমান ধুনীয়া কথাখিনি কোৱাৰ বাবে। Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now move to our next round of awards. Our next award for the night is the Food for the Future Award, to be accorded to a villager, an entrepreneur who has made a significant contribution to the promotion of organic food and has demonstrated alternative farming methods that increase yields using ecological principles that have brought about replicable change. We have two recipients under this. But before that, may I request Mr. Anish Andheria, Director of the Wildlife Conservation Trust, to join me on the stage and honor the first winner of the Food for the Future Awards tonight. A warm welcome to you, sir. Mr. Anish Andheria is the President and CEO of the Wildlife Conservation Trust, a not-for-profit working in and around 160 national parks and sanctuaries in 23 states of India. He is a member of several government committees, including the National Tiger Conservation Authority, State Board of Wildlife of Maharashtra, the Executive Committee of the Gujarat State Lion Conservation Society, and the Executive Committee of the Village Social Transformation Program of Maharashtra. It's a privilege to welcome you, sir, to the 9th Balipara Foundation Awards. And the first winner in this category, Food for the Future Award, goes to Ms. Momi Pegu. May I request you to kindly come onto the stage and please help me welcome her on stage. Ms. Momi Pegu is from the indigenous missing community in Majuli. In 2015, she founded the NGO Rigbo, and through the NGO introduced the practices of converting water hyacinth into organic compost for local agriculture. Women in the community turned invasive water hyacinth plants which grow freely on streams, ponds, lakes and rivers of the region into organic compost for farming, with the income being equally distributed among the women. For many, the earnings from this have become a strong source of their livelihoods. Ms. Momi Pegu works extensively to create a space for women in the community to have a voice and to take on leadership roles in farming and agriculture. In 2016, she collaborated with 32 other women in the community to empower and engage them in creating a shift in farming. Through her work, she has brought women together through activities such as creating organic pesticides, sustainable and organic farming that gives them the freedom to make their own decisions. And now I'll request Mr. Andheria to do the honors of presenting the Food for the Future Award to Ms. Momi Pegu. Heartiest congratulations to Ms. Momi Pegu. Thank you, Mr. Anish Andheria. Thank you very much, sir. And I will request Ms. Momi Pegu to speak a few words.
Respected dignitaries and everyone present here. First of all, I'm very happy and I would like to extend my thanks for honoring me for my little efforts that I'm making in my village. I'm remembering them, my women and the youth that I'm working with. This award I would like to dedicate to them. So I would just like to share that it was just my realization of how farming is related to the environment that I started farming. I was a person who didn't like farming at all because I used to see my parents farming but with less rewards. But for me, after my masters, I learned about new techniques and how farming, three things mainly. It's good food, environment, and economic sustainability, especially for the women. So this is how I got motivated, and this is how I started in 2015. And I got inspiration in 2009 itself when I was still doing my masters. So today I started with 32 women, and today I am happy to see that they are living it on, like the things that we have started, they're carrying it forward, and even villages are carrying it forward. And I'm so happy to share that this is going on, and you know, we have lots of plans for the future. Still continue with the same motive of good food and good environment, the free air that we breathe. So that is how it is all about that. And once again, I would like to thank everyone for this support, and with your support and the support of my mentors out there, I'm sure that we will be able to create a new era, the free air that we are talking about, and a good food security, healthy lifestyle. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again. Heartiest congratulations, Ms. Momi Pegu, for your incredible work in empowering indigenous women, farmers in Assam.